You're listening to the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Online at consumerqb.com. Brandon is Tampa Bay's #1 consumer advocate for real estate and financial advice. Call Brandon today at 813-917-1894.
And we're back. Brandon Rhymes here, Consumer Quarterback Show, helping you win in any marketplace. Giving a quick shout out to our friend Ramin Kazami over at Heights Soft Wash, pressure washing company here in Tampa Bay. Does a great job on our real estate properties. Had him clean my personal home, and he does such a great job. He's not going to damage your plants. He's not going to harm your paint. Does a great job. HeightsSoftWash.com. HeightsSoftWash.com. Ramin Kazami. Give him a call. Let him know the real estate quarterback sent you. Take him up on those special offers and incentives to our listening audience. And we got Tom Rydberg coming up here in just a moment. DK Mortgage going to be on the show. We're going to talk about the real estate industry, mortgage, what's happening in that space, as well as some missteps and things that happen throughout the process. So before we do, we like to feature our real estate listings live on air, help our sellers profit more and sell faster, utilizing our radio TV model coupled with internet marketing. We got a hot property listing here at 1307 Normandy Circle. This one's in Palm Harbor, and it's a corner lot location. Great opportunity to own real estate. You are on a waterfront there. You've got a creek behind you, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, 2,600 square foot ranch style home with a pool at 13077 Normandy Circle in Palm Harbor. Close proximity to downtown and of course the beaches. Great opportunity to own real estate. 0 Southwind Drive, taking you up to Pasco County. This one's in Hudson. You got a waterfront property, Gulf front property here. You got the Gulf of Mexico right behind you. There's no neighbor. You have the Gulf of Mexico. There's a conservation waterway where you can launch a kayak or a canoe. And then also at the end of the street, you can have your boat. You can keep your boat at the end of the street. There's a spot there for you to put a dock or a floating dock or maybe even a boat lift. Southwind Drive, Hudson. Great opportunity to build your dream home on this vacant lot in Hudson, Florida. Sea Pines neighborhood, just over $200,000. You might think this property is worth a lot more, but right at just over $200,000, and you're right on the Gulf of Mexico. Southwind Drive, Hudson. You can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
Buy dirt, find one you can't live without.
And you can buy dirt. We got a lot of vacant land listings, about 50 plus total listings. About a dozen or so are vacant land and commercial opportunities for development. All right, let's welcome in Tom Rydberg. Welcome in, sir.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for coming in. DK Mortgage in the house, Draper and Kramer Mortgage Corporation. And tell us a little bit more about your company.
Well, we're a Chicago-based company, lending nationwide now, and we opened up our first Florida office in Sarasota. 2 years, it'll be in January.
Nice.
So we love the Florida market. It has a lot of opportunities and a lot of uniquenesses that other parts of the country don't have, and I think it's probably why we've been thriving as much as we have in that short period of time.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you opened up Sarasota a couple years ago.
Correct.
Got your Tampa location too?
We're working on the Tampa location, but
Okay.
we serve the entire Florida
all mobile
market.
nowadays.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I come up to Tampa not only for your show, but to see clients typically once, twice a week. So,
Yep.
shoot up 275, 75, and we're here. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that's people ask me about my office, and I say, okay, which one do you want? First of all, Keller Williams, we got them everywhere.
Right.
But I say, I always joke and say, well, that's my SUV, my Mercedes SUV outside. There's my office, because I'm on the road all the time.
the world has shrunk a lot with technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
sure
in
has.
fact, I've been licensed in Florida about 7 years. And when I saw the trend of everyone kind of moving to the south,
Yep.
and I knew I wanted to get out of Illinois. I was born and raised there, raised my family there, but knew I wanted to get someplace south.
Yeah.
So I started kind of looking at different markets. So I didn't have an office or really anything in Florida for the first 5 years. But what people liked was that Midwest work ethic,
Right.
and just, we did things a little bit different. And we realized you don't really need a brick and mortars office. And obviously COVID proved that even
Right.
more.
Absolutely.
But with that said, we're definitely going to expand our footprint in Florida with some offices over the next couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into the market. What's your take on the market right now?
Well, I've been doing this 24 years, and
Yeah.
I don't know I've ever sat and talked about the market in December and had such a dramatic change from January that year.
Right.
So rates are, 3 points or more higher than they were last January. It's definitely shifted to more of a balanced market as far as buyers and sellers.
Yep.
So our forecast next year is kind of, I think, quote, the experts say that rates are going to come down from where they kind of peaked at maybe 30 days ago. Time will tell. I try to stay away from too many predictions, but I think that it's going to be a solid market, not as crazy as it was 6 months ago, where you had multiple offers and, if you weren't paying cash, it was hard to get to win a contract. So I think it's going to be more of a traditional, where, financing is going to come into play, whether it's conventional or government, jumbo, or some niche product.
Yep.
But being prepared is obviously going to be the key to success, not only with your realtor, but also with your lender.
Yeah.
I think that they still talk about, one of the, I guess, frustrations I have is a lot of the data points we see are national, right? So you'll see reports, which you can't compare New Jersey to Tampa or Boise, Idaho, or, any place. So I look at the Florida market, which there's still people are flocking in droves. It's one of the, historically the last 5 years, it's always had some of the top markets in the country. There's still a shortage.
Yep. And
what's the alternative for people is to rent.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, you see it with your clients. There's a lot of different niches. Why are they buying real estate in Florida, right?
Right.
Some it's a primary residence. Some it's a second home. Some it's a straight investment. You have international buyers. So it's really a fun market.
Yeah.
And I try to, I guess, reach out to as many of those different niches as I can. But I'd say the bulk of it is going to be your primary residence, second home, and investment.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And if you just joined us, we're talking with Tom Rydberg here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, DK Mortgage. He's our mortgage expert contributor. We want you to support him, support the show by calling the hotline, 813-917-1894. Call or text off-air number, 813-917-1894, consumerqb.com. And Tom, yeah, you made a great point kind of when you were talking there. You said, well, the experts think that we're going to have this, right? So I always kind of, when I hear that word, I'm like, well, which experts is it, right? Is it, because you look at Janet Yellen, she's supposedly an expert, right?
Right.
She's on record as saying, I overlooked it, I didn't see it, I'm summarizing here, paraphrasing, but, we didn't see the impending signs of inflation, and we thought it was more transitory. Remember, transitory was the word. These experts can be wrong in many cases, right?
Right. Well, I think the example I always look at, when COVID first came about, everyone thought that was going to be the end of real estate, and values were going to plummet. People were pulling out of their contracts, and the exact opposite happened. So I think you have to look at real estate and the real estate market like any other market to try to guess, where the highs and lows are going to be is, an exercise in just absolute frustration. So I look at the long-term trends of real estate specifically in Florida, and I think they're going to be very solid. As far as financing, again, rates are definitely higher than they were a year ago, and I think they're going to continue to inch a little bit lower going into next year. But I think it's a great opportunity for people to get into the market, again, whether it's a second home or primary residence, because you're not locked into that loan. You have to get a mortgage that's going to work for you right now and down the road. But I think, there's a very good opportunity the next 12 to 18 months that many clients that do buy now at probably a lower price than they could have 6 months ago will end up refinancing at some point down the road.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you're hearing that 2-1 buy down talk. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I'm not a big fan of the 2-1 buy down, but it is definitely something that people need to be aware of.
Okay.
So basically, you're prepaying the interest, or somebody's prepaying that interest. So let's just say hypothetically, the best rate today was 6.25 on a 30-year fixed, right? You do a 2-1 buy down, the first year you'd be at 4.125.
Yep.
Okay. The second year you'd be at 5.125. The remaining 28 years you'd be at the 6.125.
The original. Yep.
Right. So the logic being that at some point over those first 2 years, rates will come down and you're going to refinance.
Right.
Now, the reason I don't particularly like that is that you can simply get that money. You don't have to buy down the rate. You could keep that money in the bank. Either you could get a seller concession because the buyer can't pay that 2-1 buy down just because of the way that compliance is set up, what allowable closing costs are, things of that nature. It has to be paid by the seller. So you'll see a lot of realtors, and rightly so, trying to create some attention to their listings. They're marketing 2-1 buy downs. A lot of builders are doing it. Now, builders are a little bit different because there's more of an incentive for them. You know, if you don't want to get the reputation as a home builder that you're cutting your prices, right? Because then the people that are waiting to close see that, and it can be pretty disheartening. So they'll say, okay, well, we're not going to lower prices, but we're going to give an incentive to a buyer, and you get some pretty aggressive low rates. So in those cases, I think, hey, that's what they're offering. You take that, and you still use your long-term plan depending on what the market does. And then there's a 1-year buy down, which is simply you get a point lower the first year. So if the best rate, again, 6.125, you'd be at 5.125. And this used to be a lot more common 20 years ago when the lender, the wholesale lender that was going to service the loan, they would give that as an incentive. So you could offer that to a client knowing that, hey, we're going to refinance you down the road. And I think the distinction is that the servicers, the wholesalers, they've gotten a lot smarter. They know that these loans are not going to be held that long. They don't, they're not making money holding that loan for 6 months. You know? So they don't want to offer a product that is, they're going to lose money on, obviously. It's as simple as that. So I don't know how well I'm articulating that. So I think that the 30-year fix, the 15-year fix, try to keep your closing costs as low as possible, which sometimes actually means taking a higher rate. So sometimes you can get a lender credit towards the closing cost with the expectation that you are going to be refinancing,
there you go,
8 to 12 months down the road.
I like that.
Paying 1/8 of a point higher in your interest rate for a short period of time, but keeping more money in your pocket makes sense.
Exactly. There's options. That's what I like about it. Is you got options. You can be smart with it. And by the way, you can look at time value of money, right? So if I take today's dollar and I buy down points on my mortgage, that money, I'd rather have that money in my bank account. I kind of along your lines, right? I'd rather have that money in my bank account, whether something comes up or whatever it might be, Christmas gifts at this time of year. There's different reasons why, different motivations why people may want to do those types of things. Tom Rydberg here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. DK Mortgage, our mortgage expert contributor for the Consumer Quarterback Show, and I'm your host, Brandon Rhymes. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I've got a clip I want to play about small banks, how small banks are hurting in this economy. You notice that, of course, the federal government's helping out a lot of the big players. I'm going to dive into that more with Tom as well. We're going to talk about some of the misconceptions. I'm going to ask him his biggest misconceptions that he sees on a daily basis when it comes to mortgages and the like. So we'll be right back here. Consumer Quarterback Show, plus our feel-good story of the day. A baker revives an ancient tradition to help his neighbors from enduring high energy cost. Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
This is Work Done, and you're listening to the Real Estate Quarterback Show, hosted by my man, Brandon Rhymes.
Cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Brandon Rhymes here, your host of the Consumer Quarterback Show, helping you understand your buying decisions, making you more street smart. 50-plus show partners on the Consumer Quarterback Show, attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, all types of great expert contributors on the program, all available for you at consumerqb.com. And just by reaching out to the hotline, we'd love to put you in touch with one of our expert contributors. No matter what you're facing out there, we've got someone that can probably help you, and if not, we're resourceful. We'll find someone that will. We got a hot listing here at 202 Westchester Hills in beautiful Hillsborough County. This is a great opportunity to own real estate at 202 Westchester Hills in Tampa Bay. One of our hot listings here, 3,500 square feet, 5 bedrooms, 3 bath, 2-car garage, situated on a cul-de-sac. You got a heated saltwater pool, as well as a pool enclosure, stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, new roof, and AC units. 202 Westchester Hills Lane in Valrico, one of our hot real estate listings. You can see all of our listings at platinummvpteam.kw.com.
Sun is shining, the weather is sweet. Tell me something good.
English baker is reviving an ancient tradition to help his neighbors. Thousands of years ago, societies built one oven in town to where everybody went to bake their bread. And now Ed Hamilton Truitt from Brickyard Bakery is offering to bake Christmas cakes for anyone worried about the energy cost of turning on the oven for several hours. Anyone who's already prepared a cake can bring it into the bakery on Friday and retrieve it fully baked and decorated on Monday. Brickyard Bakery has been doing this good in the community even before the holiday season. Earlier this year, they realized the excess heat from their ovens could be used to create a community warm lounge for people without the means to heat their home throughout the day. They have also been offering pay-what-you-want cooking classes for locals. And the bakery is loved by all and has become a treasure in the community. Ed Hamilton Truitt and the rest of the staff from the Brickyard Bakery have touched many with their acts of kindness. There you have it. Feel-good story of the day. I love those stories. We always like to tell you something good. And let's go back to Tom Rydberg. DK Mortgage in the house. Tom's in the house. Draper and Kramer Mortgage Corporation. Tom, so we talked about before the break your misnomers, misconceptions that you have. What's probably the number one or two things that you see most of the time?
Well, I'd say the biggest frustration I have sometimes is there's still a mentality that you need a big down payment to buy a house.
Right.
And nothing could be further from the truth. So there are many, many opportunities for no money down, low money down. I think we're talking primarily about primary residence, right?
Res.
So there's grant programs through the state of Florida. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both have reduced down payment options, and then VA for our veterans and active duty military.
Yeah.
That's been around for years with no money down. So the other thing I think that I get frustrated is that, everyone's situation is a little bit different. So everyone has a friend, a family member that has bought a house, got a mortgage.
Yep.
And they've been given advice on what they did, what their
Right.
loan officer, their banker did. Well, their circumstances, first of all, it could have been 6 months, could have been 6 years ago. The market has changed dramatically.
Right.
Their credit situation could be different. Their employment situation, their down payment, all those things make a huge difference. So when I first started in the business, I would talk to a client and I would, fact find, I'd get all the details and I'd make a loan recommendation. I said, this is the loan that makes the most sense for your situation. They would say, thanks, that's great. What paperwork do you need? And we'd move on. Well, now with the internet and Google and your phone popping up, when you start to apply for a mortgage or talk to a realtor, your phone knows it. And right, everyone's selling your information. You're getting pinged with all these different loan programs, right?
Retargeting,
Yeah,
all
so
that
it's frustrating. So now when I sit with a client, I fact find again, but I not only make my recommendation, but you have to talk to them about all the other programs and why we're not going to do that program.
Yeah.
So that's probably one of my big frustrations.
Big time.
Kind of wastes a little bit of time, but at least
does.
they're learning, because you don't want them to hear about a program from a friend in the middle of the transaction and be wondering, why didn't Tom talk to me about this?
Yeah, exactly.
Now they can say, well, no, we're not going to do an FHA loan because the conventional gets me a better rate and the PMI goes away.
Right.
Or the FHA, it doesn't.
that's
Just as
right.
an example.
That's right. Yeah. A lot of the misconceptions, by the way, you mentioned like retargeting. This was an interesting story I did last week. Google pays nearly $392 million to settle sweeping location tracking cases. So that's what big tech's doing.
Absolutely.
That's what big tech does. I'm going to play a quick clip here because my philosophy is, let's support local businesses. Let's support small businesses, mom and pops, the blue collar, the working class, and this clip is going to speak to that here. This is a clip I found.
So regional banks are floundering.
Steve
Why?
Cortez.
Largely because small business is in such dire shape in this country. And again, these banks generally are domestically oriented. They're not all over the world the way JP Morgan is. They don't have Washington, D.C., permanent Washington to do its bidding. These banks don't, as JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon unfortunately do. That's the reality right now. But by every metric, whether you're looking at financial markets, the economic data, by every metric, the United States consumer is completely spent right now.
Yeah, so the consumers are hurting. The inflation, we've heard the stories of gas. Everything's costing more money these days, Tom. But that's kind of the discrepancy between big banks and small banks. Give us some insights on how you work with the client in terms of, hey, can you broker the loan out? Are you an in-house lender? What's your situation there?
So we're a mortgage banker. So we underwrite and fund 95% of the loans in-house, which gives us a lot more flexibility on the transaction as a whole. It gives us an opportunity to shop around and try to get the most aggressive rate we can. We do have outlets to broker some loans for a real niche product, whether it's a bank statement or maybe a foreign national buyer or a condotel, which is typically not a property that Fannie and Freddie are going to lend on.
Right.
But the majority is really it's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, and I think the role of the smaller niche products though is growing, especially if that market is a little bit more accepting of those products. Meaning that, again, 6 months ago, if you weren't paying cash, it was hard to win a contract in any situation.
Right.
Let alone if you were trying to do a brokered loan through a lender that maybe a real estate office had never heard of.
Right.
It was very challenging because a lot of those products take a little bit longer to originate and fund.
Yep.
So, and I don't know that that's going to change much going into next year either. I think that people are becoming a little bit more confident with some of those bank statement programs and the other ones.
Yep.
And that gives you, I guess, I like to say we're a large, small lender. We have all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
But we're small enough to know you, and probably we're a little bit more nimble than some of the bigger mortgage bankers out there.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. That gives you some flexibility. I like the idea that folks know that you can shop for the best rate. A lot of people are so rate conscious. There's more to the programs as we discussed earlier. But I want to give the last 30 seconds or so back to you. Give us your final thoughts and how can folks connect with you and all that good stuff.
Excellent. So I would say that the best advice I would give any client is start early. So if you think you want to buy a house next year, let's have a conversation now. Best way to reach me is cell phone, 630-550-2656. You can email me at closefaster@gmail.com if that's easier. Make a quick introduction. Tell me a little bit about your situation. If you want to check out the website, you can do an online app at www.loansearch123.com. And I think it's a great opportunity. And sometimes you may just have a question, whether it's a second home, an investment property. Feel free to reach out. I'll try to point you in the right direction, but start early.
Loansearch123.com.
You got it.
Tom Rydberg, DK Mortgage. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Another great show today. We had Carla Armstrong on earlier as well, and another great show. We want you to please go out there and consider committing a random act of kindness. Do something kind for one another. Be a force for good in the community. And we'll see you next time right here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
You've been listening to The Consumer Quarterback, Brandon Rhymes. Whether it's real estate, consumer, or financial advice, let Brandon call your next play. Call Brandon Rhymes at 813-917-1894. That's 813-917-1894. Online at consumerqb.com. And join us next time for the Consumer Quarterback Show.